So what are you doing here, viewer? Why don't you take a seat right over here? So, according to your YouTube suggestions, you were planning on watching videos about the successor of Rome? You mind telling me what you're doing here? I'm being told to let you off the hook this time, since the separation of church and state. So, never mind. Listen, this video will cover each country that has claimed to be the successor of the Roman Empire, the one to carry on its legacy long after it's gone. Some are more legitimate than others, some are a bit more of a schfunz about it, and at the end of the day, I'll give you my opinions on them at the end of each segment. Also, we're gonna rate them on a scale of 1 to 10, not believable to pretty darn believable. Alright, let's start this Gmod roleplay. So keep in mind that all of these countries at one point or another have claimed to be the actual successor to the Romans, whether it be the OG Empire, the West RE, or the Byzantines, or the Holy Roman Empire, which was a successor of the Romans in and of itself. Kind of. Jeez Louise, this is convoluted. So the following are all of the Eastern claims, whether they be claims of the Eastern chunk of the Roman Empire, or claims of the literal Eastern Roman Empire, or the Byzantines. The Byzantine Empire is quite literally the descendant of the Roman Empire, since there was no disconnect between the two. I don't think anyone's arguing against that. Okers dokers, let's begin. So, Bulgaria claims to be the successor of Rome because of their emperor, Simeon I, who was crowned Emperor of the Romans in the year 913. The reason the seemingly random Slavo-Turkic Gopnik was crowned king in the first place was because they had already been Christian for nearly a century beforehand, joined in by the Hungarites, and they attacked the Byzantines together. The Byzantines took a lot of prisoners in this war, and Simeon I took this as a sign of war. Besieging the city of Constantinople again, Bulgaria went to their capital. Surprisingly, Bulgaria actually won, and the Byzantines, who are now ashamed, gave them hella territory. This is basically it, the whole reason why Bulgaria considers themselves to be the continuation of Rome. Basically, they just conquered Constantinople, and the title should just kind of transfer over to them now that they're the owners. One more thing, they renamed the city to Tsarograd, so no ego complex there. 6.2 out of 10, try better. I plan on doing an entire video on this empire next in the quadrilogy, tetralogy, quartet, whatever. So without spoiling this empire too much, it was some faux empire set up by the Crusaders in 1204. Basically, during the Fourth Crusade, Pope Innocent III wanted to get Jerusalem, the holy city, back from the Muslims, so he flung a bunch of whiteys at the city to get back some money the Byzantines owed to the Italians, specifically the Venetians. As they attacked the Byzantines, they set up the Latin Empire in its place, controlled by Western Europeans, specifically the French, distinctly not Greek. Eventually, the Byzantines got back on their feet and kicked out the Frenchies in 1261. So where is the claim of the Third Rome coming from? I don't know. Probably what Bulgaria did with them invading and taking Constantinople and just using that as their evidence. Sorry, that's underwhelming, but yeah, 3.5 out of 10. This one is much more mainstream than the others and has lots of supporters. The claim for this one is that the Ottoman Empire finally ended the Byzantine Empire's reign in 1453, finally ending Roman influence in Europe after 2,206 years. See, the Byzantines were Greek while the Ottomans were Turks, and to this day, Greeks and Turks are rivals. The Ottoman Sultan at the time, Mehmed II, crowned himself, meaning Caesar of Rome. His claims of being the new Roman emperor weren't really taken seriously by anyone, except for a few fringe people in the Orthodox Church, mostly because they both hated Catholics. His first claim was that he took over Constantinople, and since the historical seat of the Romans was now under his control, it was only fair that he assume the title as well. His second claim was that Rome changed religion once from paganism to Christianity, so why can't it do it again from Christianity to Islam? I won't lie, he has some good points, but it's gonna be a yikes from me, Chief. 6.8 out of 10. So Serbia do be on here, though, because in 1345, the Emperor of the Serbian Empire, Stefan Dušan, crowned himself Tsar of the Romans when he visited the city of Skopje, now in today's Macedonia. Fyrom! He was there in the first place because it was Easter, and the Bulgarian Patriarch, which is basically a pope but for our Orthodox friends, agreed on it. Yeah, that's literally it. Convinced yet? And, oh, did I mention that the Serbians also invaded the Byzantines at one point? Roman, 3.9 out of 10. Okay, this is where it gets interesting, because holy smokes, this is compelling. So in 1472, Ivan III of Muscovy, which is basically just Proto-Russia, married, Sofia Palaiologina. I never knew how to pronounce her last name. A Byzantine princess, directly part of the Byzantine royal bloodline. Russia was already widely Orthodox Christian, so Ivan III crowned himself Tsar, since he was technically a part of the Eastern Roman family, and also Tsar is a transliteration of the word Caesar. After him was Ivan IV, who took the crowning to the next level, giving himself the label of Tsar of the Rus, after the Rus people that inhabited his kingdom. The church in Constantinople also supported the Third Rome claims of the Russians, since they were one of the closest to their church, both being Slavic, Orthodox, and part of the family via marriage. One of the more ridiculous claims, though, is that Moscow, the Russian capital, is built on 7 hills, just as Rome is. I'm not kidding, that's literally one of their selling points. No offense, but that kinda means nothing. We're basing conclusions on evidence and facts here. This is history, not astrology. 7.1 out of 10. Okay, so this one's kind of a BS claim, but this one says that since the Russian Empire took the title of Third Rome, and Finland used to be a part of the Russian Empire but broke away, and then also didn't get tainted by the Soviet Union, it is therefore the only pure part of the Roman Empire left, and hence the Third Rome. Get all that? Yeah, it's really only invented by the internet because Finland is a random and quirky place, but it's not really true. Interestingly enough, Finland has this giant Santa Claus village in the north of the country in the Arctic Circle, meaning that Santa Claus is technically a citizen of the Roman Empire, according to this theory. 1.7 out of 10. Well, this one is certainly Greek. So Greece, to me, has a very good chance at being the Third Rome, at least in the east. Greece has been home to the core pillars of Roman culture for nearly 2,000 years, and I think it's only fair that it gets transferred to modern-day Greece. I mean, they use similar alphabets, similar languages, similar geographic proximity, similar food, similar everything. Now, while modern-day Greece isn't 100% the exact same as Eastern Rome, it's far similar enough to definitely be more than just a coincidence. Now, the Cyprus one is just put on here for effect, considering it has both heavy Greek and Turkish influence. If you're on the Ottoman/Turkey side of the debate, don't worry, because Cyprus has you covered there as well in the north of the island. This island has the best of both worlds. I mean, they've never claimed to be the Third Rome themselves, but who cares, right? So anyway, Greece seems to me like a great candidate for the successor of the Byzantines. Most elements of their society and culture match up. Cyprus, A for effort. 8 out of 10. Next up on the chopping block are the successors of the Western Roman Empire, obviously not including rump states or successor states, which are going to be their own videos, so I want to put that out there to make it very clear. Oh boy. So the Holy Roman Empire is in a bit of a unique position here, because you're either super with it or super against its position as a Third Rome. This one might be a bit long. So in the year 800, Charlemagne, king of the Franks, was crowned king of the Romans by Pope Leo III on Christmas Day, which is so holy I think it just melted my screen. and so began the Holy Roman Empire. This is because Charlemagne, quite possibly one of the most influential figures in all of history, had formed a powerful Frankish empire in Western Europe, which hadn't been seen in centuries, and put an end to all the banditry and gonadery that plagued Western Europe after the collapse of the Roman Empire. Interestingly enough, the Byzantines were still kicking it in the east, so why wasn't their emperor crowned? After all, they are a direct, unbroken continuation of Rome. Well, that's because they didn't have an emperor at the time. They had an empress. That's right, the Byzantines were led by a femoid, making it canon that the Byzantines passed the Bechdel test. The Pope back in jolly old Italy refused to recognize a lady as the new Roman empress, so he gave it to the next best option, a big burly Germanite man. Or Frenchie, depending on who you ask. It's a whole thing. Sorry, Empress Irene. He went on to fanboy the Roman Empire, bringing back a strong military, centers of learning and libraries, churches, plumbing, and all sorts of good stuff. Amazing effort and led to stability, structure, and AP Euro. 7.3 out of 10. This one is hilariously stupid because it had a good beginning and a very awful decline. So Italy itself has a good claimant to be the Third Rome, considering it was the thriving homeland of the Romans in the first place, but in 1922, when Mussolini came to power as its fascist dictator, he had big dreams, specifically reuniting all Italian peoples around the Mediterranean and reuniting a new Roman Empire. It's unknown as to whether Mussolini viewed himself as an actual Caesar or not, but knowing his ego, he probably had that fantasy thousands of times. It's also one of the reasons he wanted to invade many of the lands around the Mediterranean as well, like Libya, Egypt, Tunisia, and Lebanon. For example, the Roman Empire looked like this, and the territory he invaded in World War II looked like this. So, you know, food for thought. It's easy to make fun of it, but it's actually a fairly decent attempt at being Roman. Unfortunately, for it being such a colossal waste of time for everyone, I'm gonna have to give it a 4.2 out of 10. The Germanites and the Austrians claim to be the Third Rome as kind of an extension of the previous section. Austria says they're Roman because way back when, centuries ago, the Austrian Empire used a bunch of imagery and symbolism that used to be Roman, specifically the Holy Roman Eagle. That's literally it, I'm not kidding. Germany is a bit more advanced. So the German Empire from 1871 to 1914 claimed to be the successors of Rome because their empire was formed out of the tiny, fractured, squabbling states of the Holy Roman Empire from before. After these states united into the greater and more powerful German Empire, they naturally thought of themselves as the new Third Rome. I won't lie, it's a good defense, but I'm afraid it's not going to cut it. Plus, they adopted the title of Caesar into German, which is Kaiser, which is the emperor of the German Empire, which is, you know, the title he took. But what about the Third Reich? The Third Reich was clearly the scion of the German Empire. Are you gonna claim that Adolf Gonzalez Hitler is the new Roman emperor? That's dumb and you know it. I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm being so aggressive. You didn't do anything. I love you. 6.8 out of 10. We're discussing France, specifically the Napoleonic French Empire, so this candidate is another one that I actually agree with. So France's claims of being the successor of the Western Roman Empire mainly come from Napoleon, who believed that since Charlemagne was undoubtedly the inheritor of a sort of nouveau West Rome, that clearly passed down to the French, who recreated this empire in such a way that it imitated the original, therefore it's theirs. It's not the dumbest logic in the world, actually. His other claims came from that both Charlemagne and Napoleon were crowned in similar ways, with Charlemagne being crowned by the Pope on Christmas, and Napoleon out-sigma-ing the papacy by physically snatching the crown from the Pope and placing it on his own nugget, which is such a power move that I can't even process it. I think it also helps that the Western Roman Empire was largely based around France, and the tribe who established the nation of France and its people, the Franks, even had their culture morph into a largely West Roman culture. I know that they were a Germanic tribe, but seriously, it's not hard to see the connection here. 7.6 out of 10. So the Hispaniards are an unique breed. For clarity's sake, the Spanish never personally claimed to be the successors of Rome, yet they often end up as it because of some oddball historical quirks. The brother of the very last Byzantine emperor, Andreas Palaiologos, actually sold his title for money to Ferdinand and Isabella of Spain as his small empire was collapsing to the encroaching Ottolets. He also sold it to a bunch of other people as well, but the reason he sold it to the Spanish was because he had hoped they would take it and finish off the Reconquista, which wouldn't happen for another few decades. So, mission accomplished, I guess? Another title, by the way, for the Spanish king, which, yes, Spain does have a monarchy like Britain, is King of Jerusalem, among others, including King of Kings and Holy Roman Emperor. No, I'm not kidding, he actually owns those titles. I mean, that may not be Roman per se, but they sure are cool. 5.8 out of 10. So which of these countries do I think is their real successor? Well, obviously, most of this video is just my opinion, but I don't think there is a successor to the original Roman emperor. It's been gone for so long now that any claim would be pretty bogus. Sorry, Vatican City, you had a good run. My personal successor of the Eastern Roman Empire, the Byzantines, is, drumroll please, Greece. Yeah, that's right, I said it. I don't think Russia's the successor of Eastern Rome, and you know what? Sue me. So the Byzantine Empire spoke Byzantine Greek, had a largely Greek-influenced culture, preserved the very same Greek literature that developed their society in the first place, etc. I think it's pretty foolish to shift the Roman legacy over to the Russians in Magnitogorsk or something, just because some blonde-haired Slavic princess married some Byzantine hunk. The Greeks get ignored so much and I feel bad. Well, no more, Greece. I'm with you. In regards to succession of the Western Roman Empire, I think it's a bit harder because there's a lot of juicy contenders. It comes down to a fight between Italy, France, and maybe Spain. Now, obviously, I mentioned their histories and their reasons and claims in the video before, so I don't think I need to rehash this again. Using my pro-judgment, I would say that the country who can best claim to be the successor of the Western Roman Empire is France. Seriously, I genuinely believe this, and I'll explain why. So obviously the Spain argument is that the title was sold to them with money and they barely used it. It's still a newer title, the whole shebang. France is far older than the others and was much more gung-ho about being Romified, so I think it's them. If you still have a doubt, please rewatch my France section. Well, that's it for this video, my little gubernatorials. I love you. So how is this for part 1 of the Rome Saga? I thought it was pretty good. Pretty cool. We have a long road ahead of us, but I know we can get it done. This video production was probably a bit more controversial since I expressed some illegal opinions, mainly about Muscovy not being the third Rome, and I know the history community really doesn't like thought crimes that go against the based German Empire or whatever. Call me a frog all you want, but for once, France isn't going down without a fight. Dang it.